Hey guys, welcome in to season 2 of the Sharks Pacific Cup presented by WD Black. This is the first episode of our weekly show, Shark Bites. I am NoSleeves, joined by my co-host for the whole event and really the lead broadcaster, my man Griz. Dude, it's awesome to have you on board this season, and we are today going to break down everything from all of the roster changes, all of the new formats for this event, the prizes, the giveaways, all of it, my dude. How are you doing tonight?
Oh, dude, I'm doing fantastic. Definitely glad to be along the ride this season. Wasn't here last season. You guys did a phenomenal job, but definitely happy to kind of give my take on all this, and even more happy to be doing a podcast. This is kind of the first of its kind for any ESHL event, so it's really cool that we kind of get to be the guinea pigs here and give this a test run.
No, absolutely. So hopefully we can provide some entertainment, some hot takes, some clips, all that kind of stuff. And thank you guys for joining us into the chat tonight. And again, just like we're doing every stream, we've got a huge WD Black giveaway, and we'll get to that in just a little bit later on in the episode. But let's start just with our introduction for our event. So let's talk about this event specifically and how it compares to season 1 and the new schedule and format. Walk us through some of the changes that we're going to see in season 2, Griz.
Yeah, so in season 2, I'll start with the new schedule format. And this season, we are running with the Schedule 8 format. That means that you can play guys 8 seeds above or below you. Last season, they were brackets of 12, and any team in those 12 could match up. This time, you can do plus or minus 8, and it'll make those middle tiers a little bit better for those guys to fight for and give them a little more option of teams that they could potentially match up against in any given week. The playoff the playoff format is pick your opponent once again. That was a favorite last season, so we will be bringing that back, and of course doing that selection show. I know that was a great topic of discussion for the last event. You did a great job bringing those guys on. Everyone throwing the heat, loving to make their picks, and it's funny when a team will pick someone with confidence and then they end up losing. So hopefully we get more of that this season. And of course, this is the largest prize pool to date for sixes. $30,000, $26K going to the winner, $4K going to the runner-up. And man, what a prize pool. But not only that, but WD Black is back with a ton of giveaways, giving away a hard drive every stream, every podcast, and what a sponsor for this event, Sleeve.
No, absolutely. This is one of my favorite events to work with. And again, the prize pool for this is crazy. $30,000, the largest prize pool from a team-based event for, NHL esports. And I can't wait to see, it elevates all of the gameplay and makes everything that much better with that much on the line. Again, $26,000 to first is a substantial amount of money, obviously. And yeah, you mentioned it. The playoff format is always one of my favorite things. The pick'em, you get to see kind of the trash talk. We had some of my favorite clips of the entire season last year from all esports events were those shows where we did the pick'em live, some of the best sound clips. And I guess we'll talk about, some of the bigger names that are no longer going to be a part of our season. I mean, obviously with Bones, one of the loudest people in the community, one of the loudest personalities. We'll get into that in just a little bit in terms of some of the roster changes, but no BBB. So again, it's going to be a pretty dramatic shift in the NHL esports landscape. But yeah, the 5-week regular season. And again, we're going to have this show every single week. For the most part, it'll be on Mondays. There will be some dates where we will have to change it a little bit, but I'm excited to talk about and break down the week that was in the Sharks Pacific Cup. And I think, again, like you mentioned, it's the first of its kind. And I'm excited to give that kind of content for you. So we're going to take just a quick break, guys, to hear from our sponsor, WD Black. And when we get back, we are going to talk about season 1's recap and all of the changes that we're going to see in season 2. All right, guys, welcome back. So you just saw there WD Black, the main sponsor of the Sharks Pacific Cup, and make sure you hit exclamation mark giveaway in the chat to enter in for the giveaway. You see there again, amazing giveaways throughout this entire event from WD Black, an amazing sponsor, and you want to make sure you get in on that every single stream. So exclamation mark giveaway in the chat. You just have to do it once, guys. Spamming it or whatever won't get you more entries, so you don't have to worry about putting it in 50 times. So just once. You'll get it added in, and you're all good to go. So let's start with just season 1 standings. I mean, last year's Pacific Cup was really the first esports event for sixes last year that kind of kicked off the esports season. And man, when you look at these standings, Griz, what kind of stands out and what they just, it's funny to me because we called all the events last year, and looking at it now is just wild because some of the teams that are just no longer there.
There has been a ton of changes year over year for these clubs, and you look at the standings, the more things do change, the more they stay the same. Olympia on top again, as we often saw throughout the last year, but in second place, Cohesion, who is no longer a team.
Yeah, they don't even exist.
They don't even exist anymore, and there are a lot of notable teams that are no longer here. I'll start with Ground and Pound. They disband after a round 1 loss to Eclipse. Cobra Kai kind of disband, but pieces of them are still around. They had a round 2 loss to BBB. Canadians Esports, they disband after a quarterfinals loss to Olympia. BBB, one of the more prolific teams in recent memory, they disband following a quarterfinals loss to Composure. And Denial also disband a round 2 loss to Entourage. Cohesion, who we talked about, they did rebrand to Resilience, but have since disbanded. That was a quarterfinals loss to Eclipse. Nationals has disbanded. They had a round 2 loss to Eclipse. And Day One has also disbanded after a round 1 loss to LFG. Now, something important to note, there are a couple of rebranded teams as well. Hidden Potential rebranding as Anaheim Ducks Gaming following that new partnership, so congrats to them. LFG disbanding, but also slightly rebranding to Monarchs, and they're always a tough competitor. Vertigo rebranding as Scary Hours, and of course, Entourage. Congratulations to them as well for rebranding as Isles Gaming Team.
No, absolutely. I mean, again, quick shout out to Isles GT for kind of paving the way. I mean, again, Isles GT signing Entourage to be a professional team, the first of its kind in the NHL landscape, and this is going to be, it's such a really big kind of highlight for them in this huge event for the Sharks. So it'll be really fun watching how they go about their run in this event. And yeah, like I said, so throughout the whole year, there's lots of storylines that we can discuss. Let's take a look real quick at last year's, the playoff bracket, as you see here. And again, things are just, some surprising ones that, like, now thinking back again from I called the event last year, and it's been so long, and so many events have taken place in between them that you kind of forget. Like Canadians Esports going to Game 6 against Olympia, I had forgotten they'd made it into that third round. Obviously, Eclipse was one of the more fun teams to watch as well, but every single round they seem to be like the underdog, really. And just, getting just into the semifinals against Olympia. And we're going to talk about that rivalry now, as it's much different in terms of who is on or in that rivalry. But the teams overall, they just seem to not be able to get away from each other now. Entourage, obviously now Isles GT, and then Composure, far different now. From just Odie was always the guy that you thought about when it came to Composure, and obviously that's quite different going into this event. But give me something that stands out for you. Again, you didn't work on this one, so what was pretty surprising to see from when you're looking at this bracket now?
The first thing that jumps out to me, and it's really hard to see, but on that right side, you'll see Prodigy, a loss to Catch 22 in round number 1. The reason that this is significant is because Prodigy went on an absolute tear as those Hut kids turned themselves into Sixes Lords and found a way to win that event on PlayStation with CBJ Gaming. And it's a tribute to the grind. I mean, these kids had all the raw talent in the world, but had no idea how to play Sixes at the time. And now they're kind of cementing themselves in that top echelon of teams, certainly in a lot of people's top 5s, definitely in nearly everybody's top 10. And it's just a tribute to them. And they have really improved as a team, and that shows what you can do when you get the right pieces. Sometimes it only takes a change or two to get that right fit, And now they're off to the races and winning events and competing in every event. So that's the biggest thing that stands out to me for sure. But obviously, you see a ton of stuff over there, like that BBB losing to Composure. I mean, Composure's run in this event was unbelievable, going through Olympia, Entourage, BBB. I mean, just all the teams that you can name, an absolute gauntlet winning that one. But now the Sharks are back, doubling up better than ever with the biggest prize pool. So this one is not only for ultimate bragging rights, but a nice cash prize as well.
Yeah, and I remember back then as well as the Composure was always like one of the consensus best teams, like top tier teams, and they just couldn't get that big win. Like they had been kind of the consensus best team, but just could not get that big win. And I remember, them getting this one for the Sharks, and it was just so big for them as a team. And yeah, again, much different now going into season 2. Olympia, I remember they had made it to the finals in almost every event, dating all the way back to the end of NHL 20, even back into like the underdogs era. And they just could not get a win either. It was constant second places. And now they probably had the most dominant run that we might ever see in sixes. I mean, what they did last year, I mean, you alluded to a little bit in that intro, what they did last year, just phenomenal. And the amount of wins in top 2 finishes was simply incredible. And I mean, beating that and what they did last year, I want to say is almost impossible, but I mean, it wouldn't surprise me at all. No one is stunned when they make it to a finals or win an event again. Talk to me a little bit about Olympia and what your expectations are for this season.
My expectations are they should win. They are the best team. Their dominance has not been foiled by anybody. Eclipse did knock them off in recent memory, but they've dropped 5 other playoff series against them. And Olympia, they are still the team to beat. 9 first place finishes, 5 second place finishes in the last 17 events, and it's just complete dominance. And that does include Gabsy and Grimm with the Icebreakers. That includes Gabsy, Grimm, McFlurry, and Reigns with the underdogs. So no matter where these guys go, they win, and it's just unbelievable what they've been able to do.
No, absolutely. I think, again, like you mentioned, it's been absolutely wild just to see their run and how well that they've done over this. But let's talk a little bit. Let's move on to a roster mania, and another great addition to LG's website. A tribute to our producer behind the scenes. You can't see him, Tris, for kind of making this page, which is phenomenal. Again, you can go and see different events and what their teams looked like back then and what they do now. So, Tris, let's bring it up. Yeah, you'll see here we've got season 1 of the Sharks Pacific Cup, and now what the rosters look like for season 2. And I think, yeah, let's just go through some of this and see. And we'll start at the top with Olympia. So I'm going to let you take the reins here, and I'll just kind of jump in about the things that are surprising to me. And again, the last few events I haven't been a part of, but I've watched these guys play for basically 3 years now, and I'll jump in when I see something big there. But go ahead and take it away.
Starting with Olympia, the players retained Grimm, Gabsy, McFlurry, Reigns. Nothing crazy there, but the players added, Gilly and Odie, have really cemented this team at the top. They had success with Rocket, but bringing in more of a team player in Gilly has really brought this offense to new heights. And then Odie's the new addition, and they've worked out. It surprised me to see Odie come here after his long tenure with Composure, and even more impressive to see how good of a fit he's been with Olympia. I really thought that Olympia would get knocked down a peg or two, but nothing to see there, as he's fit in just like he's fit like a glove. Moving on to Isles GT here. Isles GT rebranding from Entourage. The core 6 that won that Caps Gaming Showcase LAN is back and signed with Isles GT. They'll be a top competitor as well. Eclipse is a very interesting one.
This one's wild to me because they have been a dominant team in every competitive event, and they've changed almost their entire roster. At least three or four parts every event, and somehow they just keep moving on, which is wild to me. Other than Ricky Sticks, my man Rick Chell is apparently the glue that holds everything together because they can change out 5 parts, and for some reason, they just roll right on, which is wild to me.
Well, 3 straight Xbox Finals appearances for this Eclipse team, and they finally found a roster that they think really works. They brought in Doughty alongside Dumoulin. That D pair is so much fun to watch. They have a ton of creativity with the puck. And of course, anytime Rick's going, when he's able to find a lane to shoot, he will find a way to hit the back of the net. Moving on to Scary Hours. This was a rebrand from Vertigo, and it's just a really good roster. A lot of guys said, well, they're running 3 centers. Well, it doesn't matter. They find ways to win. They are very stout defensively. Scary Joey being that rock through neutral zone and in the defensive zone as well. They have Gren on util. He's a very good addition when called upon. They don't use him too often. But the new addition there, the most recent addition, is bringing in official Mark, also from Composure. So Composure now losing the D pair that has been there for years. What do you think about that, Sleeves?
Well, like that was the thing. So, like watching official Mark and Odie, it was obviously Odie's kind of being one of the biggest names in sixes, well, even in 1v1 as well in esports for the last like 5 years essentially. And official Mark was always the one that you never heard of, or not never heard of. Sorry, just never. You never noticed him as much, and that isn't a bad thing when you're talking about defensemen. Like I remember doing broadcasts, and there would be just times where you wouldn't notice him because he just would eliminate plays. Like he would, when he was on his game, he would just eliminate the entire side of the ice, and he wasn't really the one that was called upon to really quarterback the play. In which I was kind of interested to see when we did the ILGT event last week between Olympia and Eclipse. I was curious to see how Odie and Grim would play, because every time I watched them last year, they were kind of the ones that there's a few defensemen in this in the Sixers landscape that when you watch them, they kind of command the puck. Like Odie loves to bring the puck from the point down low and kind of working like that. And Grim, I always notice either take shots from the point, or he always had the puck in the offensive zone kind of situation there. And I'm always kind of curious to see how, when you have two players like that, how it works. A lot like with BBB when they got K-Cut, and they always had that revolving door at left D, and they brought in Augie, and then they had that pairing for so long. K-Cut was always the one that had like the commanding, the need for the puck. But when Augie came in, it was like they just split it up, and it worked really well. And that's what it looked like with Olympia last week against Eclipse. It just looked like it was really, really good chemistry there. And yeah, wild to me that the team that wins, they lose their entire D-core, the starting defensive pair, with official Mark on Scary Hours now and Odie on Olympia. But it's really interesting that at the top, man, it's seeing some of these big names in the community change teams. Just pretty wild to me.
Well, I do want to touch on what you said about Mark and not really noticing him kind of being that silent killer, just doing his job defensively, not doing too much offensively. Because I'll take you back to KCC event number 3. And probably the two most spectacular goals I've seen in recent memory, both out of McFlurry, toe dragging inside on Mark, making him look silly as he walked in and sniped the goalie both times. And just, man, I feel for Mark on that one, but that was probably one of the greatest single efforts that I've called live. And Mark was on the wrong end of both of them. And both of those toe drags happened within like 15 seconds of gameplay. So that's just really crazy for that to happen.
Obviously tough when when defensemen get kind of hung out to dry in like the biggest event when the lights are the brightest. Let's talk about Prodigy now. And I want to, before you get into it, I obviously always have a soft spot for Prodigy, because when they first started, I've known these guys because I covered ones well before I covered 6v6. Obviously, like with GWC and all the 1v1 team events, I knew all of these guys, and not to mention I just played against them in Hockey Ultimate Team, things like that. And it's always like you roll your eyes when you see 1v1 kids kind of make a team, and they just always assume that they're going to be among the best right away. But it's a far different game playing sixes. And Prodigy just, at the beginning of 21, just consistently got better. And it was really fun for me personally to see them actually, get better. And then they got respect as it went along. You started seeing the Sixers community where they're not just an overlooked team anymore that got knocked in the first round of the Shark Civic Cup. They're now one of the best teams, in my opinion, in sixes. And so walk me through their new additions and what we're working with here.
Well, after talking with Polgs, the one thing he told me was that they really just needed to find that fit for right defense and center. They finally found it. Booch has been there for a couple of events now, has fit in extremely well. Desi on the right defensive spot. And the core is back with Polgs, Geimer, and Ked. They are the 3 lone wolves from that team that did lose in that first round. So they finally found their fit. Something interesting to know, they did move on from Rampage and moved forward into Vayne. Vayne, one of the few goaltenders that you could replace Rampage with. And, it's just, we talk about it often. Is that something that you should do, turning your back on friends for a better fit? Well, when you're playing for money, you do what you think the team needs. And Vane is arguably the best goaltender in sixes. And if you have the chance to add him, it's tough for Rampage, but Rampage did find another equally good fit with Eclipse. And we'll move on to that in a bit, but tell me your thoughts too.
Well, like that's the one thing is Vane, because even going back to, I remember when he played with Cohesion in this event, one of the best runs. Like he was, a big reason as to why they did so well. And the numbers that he put up playing against the best teams that there was, it was just wild to me. He's played on a lot of teams. Like given your coverage of the events over the last, 5 or 6 months, he's played on a bunch of different teams. Is there a reason why? Is it just goalie turnover? Like what would be the reason? Because like, again, I'm just trying to learn like what happened there, because again, like Vane, just every time I've watched him play in a sixes event, he's been incredible.
So for me, I think it's the expectation of being the best goaltender. And when you are that caliber, your team is expecting to win no matter what. Even if the goals that go in are not necessarily your fault. In 22, snipes happen. I mean, that's just the reality of it. Even the best goalies are getting sniped. Goals do go in. And I feel like goaltenders do take a ton of heat. So even if you're the best, you have a lot more weight on your shoulders. And that's why I think Vane hasn't been able to find the right fit.
No, absolutely. That definitely could be it, man. It's just, they obviously do take the brunt of it, but yeah, he's been absolutely incredible every time I've gotten to watch him. So let's go on to another team. Let's go on to Composure. Talk me through the additions and what we're going to see now to Composure, our prior champion in season 1.
So out of that team, just Hit Dat and Tendy remain from season 1 of Sharks. And this was a team that was standing the test of time. They were so solid for so long. J Money, Official Mark, Odie, those guys just great on that team. And now they enter a new era with Taylor and Vic dominating the back end. And they bring in McLovin, Time to Shine, and the Wall as well, backstopping the Wall. Obviously, another one of the best goaltenders. So they move on from Vane and bring in the Wall. The Wall, a very, very capable goalie as well. And, I do think this team takes a hit with the guys that they did lose. But Vic really does not like NHL 22 at all. So how effective can you be when you're going into a game just already hating it? You're going to be negative because you don't like the game. That can bring down vibes. So I think Composure, to me, does have a lot to prove with this lineup.
No, absolutely. And it's wild again, because when you see in normal sports, you see the year over year, right? Like there isn't supposed to be that much change, but obviously there's going to be it's far different more than likely in this one. It just on paper, and again, from someone just watching sixes from the outside in, not seeing it like day in, day out, I would expect them to not maybe do as well. It'll be a little bit more of a challenge for them this year than the run that they had last in season 1. But it'll be definitely fun. That's a great storyline to take a look at. Is Composure now? Again, Odie was really the guy that you thought about when you thought about Composure, and obviously him moving on. But Hit Dat and Tendy have been so good together for so long that it probably doesn't really knock them down all that much. But moving on, we've got another team representing a NHL franchise. So let's discuss that.
Yeah, so let's look at Anaheim Ducks Gaming. The rebrand from Hidden Potential, maybe not the first team that comes to mind when you think about a team branding with an NHL team, but an effective team nonetheless. And they still have a lot to prove as they're looking for that next championship. And they're bringing in a lot of changes as well with Anaheim Ducks Gaming, but Hidden Potential has not had that many changes.
I was about to say, this looks awfully similar.
Yeah, mainly through lefty and center. So Hidden Potential, after that Sharks event, went through a couple of changes at center, at defense, but now it's kind of back to that core lineup that we saw at NoSleeves. And this is a lineup that will compete with the best of them every single night. But once they get into rounds 2, 3, 4, that's when they need to find a way to edge out these other really good top 5 teams.
No, absolutely. I remember I got the pleasure to meet, these guys in Washington in that first LAN back in, man, that just feels like forever ago. My goodness. That 2020? Yeah, it was right at the beginning of 2020. It feels like it was longer than that. 2 years ago, I got I got to meet these guys, and yeah, obviously Augie is one of my favorite people in the community. I think he's hilarious, and what he did on BBB was phenomenal in the sense that BBB, leading up to Augie joining their team, it was legit a revolving door at left defense. And Augie joins the team, and he just, every game that I called for BBB, Augie was one of, if not the most noticeable player for them. So it was just really fun to watch, and it's nice to see them actually, go back to in potential. Well, now Anaheim Ducks Gaming, and see them kind of join the old squad here and see what they can do in the Sharks. I have the same feelings as you, as I think that they're just on the outside of that like top 5. Like I think they're a top 10 team. But yeah, when they get into that that second, third round of the playoffs, that's when we might see them struggle a little bit. It's going to be, it might be some upsets. You never know, but they've done it before way back when, and it'll be interesting to see how they do in this event coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to note, I mean, Augie also scored one of my favorite goals that I called. And he steps in from the blue line, just wind up, slap shot, Thomas Vanek style. And it was definitely one of my favorite goals to call live. It was an overtime winner, and he just drilled one into the back of the net. Augie, definitely a premier player in this league, but sometimes he does get too offensive, and that's something that could hold the team back if they're not getting back to cover for him.
Next up, we've got Starstruck. Walk me through them.
So looking at Starstruck, they've had a couple of changes as well, and players removed none because they didn't compete in the event. They are a new team to this event, and they've only competed in 3 other events to date, so they are a new team, but bringing in Paralyzer and Jemima over from BBB, bringing in Dupes, Espas, Marco. The boys are trying to keep it together, and they had a really good run when J-Claws was centering them. They won, I believe it was KCC event number 2, where J-Claws just went on an absolute tear, taking down Entourage, having one of the best series out of any individual player I've ever seen. And just, man, but now that he's gone, Marco has started to play center. And this team is a very good team, but they're still trying to figure out their identity. And that's something they're going to look to do in this event.
It's funny that you say that, because looking at this roster, and again, from someone who's been covering, the Sixes scene in esports events for the last couple of years now, it's like they're all amazing players, but they were never like the highlight player on the team that they came from. And so when you said that they don't have they might not have an identity just yet, it's funny because, like I said, so like Jemima obviously was one of the best wingers on BBB, but then you've got Bones and Sitful. You might think about a little bit more. Perry had Can we real quick? I mean, I know we talked about BBB quite a bit, and they're not even competing this event, but man, that Cobra Kai BBB series is one of my favorite of all time, and he put on a performance. That was one of the best goalie battles I think I've ever seen in a Sixes event. But yeah, so like it's interesting that you said that they kind of maybe lack identity, and I could just see that on the roster. Again, it's just guys that are phenomenal players, but might not be the focal point of the team that they came from. So, but yeah, go through the next few teams and who we're looking at in terms of roster mania.
Yeah, so now we'll take a look at Instinct, and Instinct really starting to cement themselves among the best as well. They did have a sweep in a finals loss that they want to rebound from, but definitely this is a team that has found their identity as of late. Instinct, an extremely fun team to watch with Hero up the middle, keeping him as long as they have. This Instinct team, really, like I said, they compete with the best series in, series out, and bringing in Gergs, Dats. RWB has been unbelievable for this team in net. Every event I've called, he seems to just make save after save after save. And definitely, someone that I really wasn't aware of, a younger guy in the community, really just an absolute wall in net. And this is a team that will compete every event. Someone I'm looking to be a game changer on Instinct is Promo. Promo is becoming one of the better players in this league. However, when they get to the big games, there are tendencies for him to no show or not have the ability to make things happen. And that's something I think that they need to rely on in addition to Hero. So Hero, like I said, is that main playmaker on this team. Hero and Luigi, that deadly combination. Can Promo activate when it is all on the line? That's what I want to see out of him this season.
No, absolutely, I agree, and it'll definitely be fun, man. Looking back at like the team where they came from, like Gergs, like day one, I forgot about that team. And like it just a blast from the past. Like I said, this is 1 year. We're 1 year removed. Like this is about a year ago when this event was taking place. Actually, a little bit over a year, I believe. At day one, I forgot all about them. And yeah, just it's just fun taking a look down memory lane here on that one. And Luigi, man, he was phenomenal. I believe it was the Caps Showcase was their final appearance. Instinct, if I'm not mistaken, last year's Caps Gaming Showcase. Luigi looked amazing. It's funny to me because we talked about official Mark and how there's defense. I'll use Marc-Edouard Vlasic in his prime. You never heard his name, and that wasn't a bad thing. It was a great thing because he just never made mistakes, right? But he didn't drive play essentially. And it's funny when you find a defenseman when they do, it's very noticeable. And I remember Luigi when I was watching that Instinct run was phenomenal. Like he just took over the game for Instinct, and yeah, he'll definitely be a player to watch for sure.
All right, moving right along here, we'll take a look at Highlanders. A couple more teams that we'll go through with our roster mini. We're not going to go through every single team. Just wanted to kind of highlight the ones at the top. And Highlanders did not compete in that event, but now they are. And we'll take a look at Dangs. And Dangs has a lot to prove, as we've seen him lose elimination.
Can he win the big ones
after elimination game? He seems to never come away with it. And it doesn't matter if it's an ESHL event or LG on Xbox or PlayStation, he finds himself losing these elimination games.
Can't win the biggies.
Can't win the biggies. So, I mean, for me, he's got to figure it out. He's alongside Ripon. Fool has been amazing for them. And Denisov is an absolute wall in net as well. But it comes down to, can Dangs get it done when it matters most? Even more so than Promo. And, Promo maybe not as effective in the elimination games, but Dang's always finding a way to cost those elimination games. So that's something that he really needs to prove to me.
No, absolutely. And I think that much like how you mentioned how Highlanders, they're expected to be among one of the better teams. But I think Highlanders are kind of in the same boat there. I think that I would expect them to make it out of the first round into the next couple rounds. But when they go up against, a Composure, Olympia, even let's say Prodigy, Scary Hours, like they're definitely going to be a significant underdog in that situation. But you take a look at their roster and they have great players that came from a bunch of different teams. I mean, Vape is phenomenal. We got Ripon, Fool from Canadian Esports. Fool might be one of the most underrated defensemen in sixes. He is so good at just eliminating an entire side of the ice. I remember doing the Leafs event last year, and obviously far different. That was a draft, but it was wild to me watching Fool in that event because there wasn't as many like pro level sixes players, but he was just so good at just locking down to the complete side of the ice. So it's really fun to watch, and yeah, I think Highlanders in that same boat. I think that they've got a lot of prove to get into that upper echelon. I think.
So
you are just grinning. Chad is loving your takes, brother.
I've been waiting to respond to this, and I want to clarify my comments on Dangs because he said he doesn't cost, and I'm going to prove to you why he does cost, because every single time I've called this guy play a game, he will miss 3 or 4 breakaways in said elimination game and then smash his fist on his desk. And that's just something that, you got to move on from and find a way to score. You're getting opportunities to score and win these games. Find a way, dang. That's all I want. I want you to find a way.
It's okay. I got to give a shout out because I remember the Caps 3v3 event when Nasher and Montage Moment with Rick Shell. I don't think I've ever seen Rick Shell miss more breakaways in a 3v3 game in my life. So, I feel for Dangs, but, it's you got to bury in the big ones, my man, I guess. As
it's not beef. I love Dangs, but I'm also very truthful in what I say. And if I see something, I'm going to say it. It's not beef.
That's the best part about doing this in the recaps and kind of stirring stuff up. We got to get some storylines here because now every single week, if Dangs buries on the breakaway, we're getting like clips just constantly spammed in the chat, probably or in DMs.
I hope he does, but I'll hold my breath.
Yeah, I thought I was harsh on Dangs. Griz is going for throats. Excellent. Well, yeah. So we didn't want to go through all of the teams, but yeah, obviously those were, some of the more, potent ones that we've got to pay attention to going in to this next event. But let's talk about, we'll talk about the Sharks in general, my man. As a diehard Sharks fan, it's been really fun and definitely an interesting era now as, they basically did 2 decades of dominance in the regular season with quite a bit of playoff success. Obviously no cup, but definitely a much different season now over the last 2. But yeah, it's going to definitely be interesting.
Yeah, so let's move on to our Shark talk here. And what were your expectations going into the season? You obviously have been a lifelong Sharks fan. What did you want to see this team do this season? Or what was the bar set that you thought they would set this season?
Obviously with like all of the things that were going in the background with he who must not be named with Evander Kane, obviously that was going to be, he was probably their best player. And anytime that a team that a fringe team for the playoffs loses their best player, obviously expectations go way down. But the first, as it stands up to the All-Star break, they've done very, very well and competing for a playoff spot. I thought that at the high end, a wild card spot would be where they would. In the Pacific, in my opinion, is probably one of the most wide open divisions. Definitely a lot of ranges of possibilities for a lot of teams, but it's definitely weird now, man, because I've been a fan for about 20 years now, and it was basically automatic. It was like Sharks playoffs. I'll see in April essentially, and obviously it's not that now. It's just a different era. It's much more difficult for them now with the moving on from the Thornton and Marlowe era, losing Pavelski, all of that. But yeah, my expectations going into this one were the second wild card spot. And all the way, I would say, I think looking at the roster and being like a realist about it, I think that they're too good to land in a lottery spot, top 5. Really that top 5 pick. I'm confident they will be in the playoff hunt for the last month of the season. I'm not sure where it'll go after that, and if they've got kind of the horses, but it's been really fun this season.
So you talked a little bit about your expectations and how you feel about the team this year. What's different this year than prior years where maybe they were competing for the cup, but maybe just oh man, take me back to that big run, that just the letdown. But man, what is different this year about the Sharks?
Well, like I mentioned, like they don't have the dominant offensive forces that they had, for like basically the decade of the Thornton era. I think that people that maybe didn't get to watch Joe Thornton a lot because when he moved to San Jose, a lot of people on the East Coast just don't get to watch Sharks games. Thornton might be one of the best passers of all time. I remember watching him play for so long, and it was just like automatic. And the stuff that he would do is just simply incredible. And now, like I said, they don't have that top end, Hall of Fame offensive player. I will say this, Timo Meier, a little bit of a letdown last season in terms of his offensive output, blowing the doors off of expectations. Timo Meier is carrying this team. Offense. I'm reading Rick Chell's in the chat. Carrying this team offensively, and it's been really fun to watch. Same with Tomas Hertl. Ever since he joined the Sharks, he's been, the between the legs, ending the career of Marty Baron, who I used to watch all the time as living in Southern Ontario, watching the Sabres. It's really fun. And then you always got Burns. I want to call his play violent. Like he's not violent in terms of his, he hits hard, but it's not like the violent body checks. It's like he's violent with his stick, and it's always just really like his defensive stuff, like what he does and the plays he creates is always so fun to watch. Karlsson was having a bounce back year. This was probably the best Karlsson has looked as a Shark. Unfortunately, injuries just keep catching up with him. And then James Reimer, man, like anything was better than what we had in net over the last few years. And I think that people forget that when the Sharks went to the conference finals against the Blues, they did that kind of in spite of Martin Jones, not because of Martin Jones. And they just needed a regular season save percentage of over 900. And they literally hadn't got that for 3 years. So getting James Reimer to play the way he did so well, it's been a little bit of a struggle recently, dealt with some injury. Aiden Hill definitely hasn't lived up to expectations, but the jury's not out on him yet. I think that he can be a fine goaltender for us, but that 1-2 punch of Reimer and him has been definitely above expectation, I think, but we'll have to see. Like I said, I think that they're too good to finish in the lottery, and they might not be good enough for a playoff spot, which in all honesty is probably the worst spot for a team. But there is definitely some hope that they can make that second wild card spot. And really, I just want to see them in the playoffs again. I definitely took it for granted as a fan for like 20 years. People, they didn't win a cup, so you can't say, they ran the league, but they were one of the most dominant for the majority. And it wasn't like they had a lot of first round exits. Word to my man Hazy, because he knows a lot about first round exits with his favorite team. But the Sharks always went on deep runs, and it's definitely odd now where every game in the regular season kind of feels like a playoff game to a certain extent, because like, man, you can't lose 2 games in a row because there's going to be a 5-game win streak. It's like it was. So definitely different expectations for sure. But let's hear real quick from our sponsor WD Black, and then we'll get back with our giveaway for the stream. Again, you don't want to miss that, so stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey guys, welcome back to Shark Bite Season 2, the Pacific Cup, underway this week. Our first weekly show of Shark Bites. Myself, NoSleeves, joined by Griz. Again, guys, we just saw it there from the ad WD Black, the main sponsor of the Sharks Pacific Cup. Make sure you get in on the giveaway. We are going to be doing the giveaway in just a little bit. ! Giveaway in the chat. You just got to type it once, guys, and you're in. All right, so before we get into that, guys, let's just see an updated ESHL leaderboard. Obviously, this was one of the best things. I think me and Tris, had that idea of a couple of events, and Tris built this phenomenal system. And just taking it through, guys. So this is going to give you kind of the score and the roster and how they have performed over the last few events and last few years. And you see Olympia at the top with ILGT and Eclipse. Give me something that you expect to maybe fall or rise out of that Division 1.
So looking at Division 1, I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. These teams belong here. They have always gone far in events. And I think that, this might be a surprise because of my prediction that we'll get to soon, but I think Composure might fall here because of the changes that we talked about.
Yeah.
Losing your core defense, I mean, that is huge.
No, I agree. I think, yeah, definitely. Like I had mentioned earlier, it's like, Composure, that they're the reigning champs of the Sharks Pacific Cup, but, losing that decor or voting official mark, I think it'll definitely be a much bigger challenge for them this year. But maybe that brings them together, right? Like maybe, they're not, just the consensus best team, and maybe that, they've been that for so long that maybe now they kind of get that like chip on their shoulder kind of thing and see them rise. I'm really, obviously memes aside, I'm always a big fan of the boys from Entourage, but they're no more as ILGT. I'm really excited to see, first of all, them getting back together. They were a team that didn't change their roster more than anyone for about over a calendar year, which was something that we just didn't see in the space at all. J-Claw's coming back to ILGT now, formerly Entourage. And I'm curious to see how they perform. There is definitely more pressure. You can't say that there isn't, because obviously all of the lights are on them for being the first professional team signed by an NHL organization. And, every event and everyone is going to gun to make them look silly, essentially. You know what I mean? Like, you are going to see all of these teams kind of circle their matchup against them because they know that, hey, this is an NHL franchise essentially signed. They're the first pro team. We want to beat them because we want to, potentially be the next team that's signed, kind of thing. So I think that that's going to be a really, really fun thing to watch going into, because they are definitely going to be a team that is, they're not hated, but definitely a team that they are, no one's going to pull any punches when they're playing them. They are going to get the team's best games for the most part, as they should, because they, again, huge target on their backs with obviously that signing. And then, Prodigy, we mentioned them. It's been just really fun. I think that in sixes and even in 1v1 to an extent, again, I have a background of covering esports for NHL over the last couple of years. You just don't see a lot of new teams come in and become and get into that top 5, top 10 in 1v1 or in ESHL. It's a very, just a kind of an exclusive club where other top end teams don't want to give them that respect, the new teams that respect, and you've really got to prove it, not just one event, but like multiple events. And, I think that they've done extremely well, being a lot of players that just played 1v1 and have now learned how to dominate in 6v6. It's going to be really fun to see. And, Prodigy Polgs is going to be joining us in Florida this weekend, competing for a 1v1 event. So it's not like they've just all focused on 6v6 now. I mean, CAD was the reigning winner of the Lightning event that I covered, I think it was 2 years ago. And now you've got Polgs, who's a teammate now, going to compete this year. So it's really fun in that aspect, not just for 6v6 esports for NHL, but just esports in general for NHL. I really think that they're a fun team because of that story. But let's, Tris, let's throw up our predictions. The other man on our broadcast that you will see every week will be my man Davos. And we got our top 5 predictions. So we've got Davos here. He's got Olympia number 1, Eclipse number 2, obviously after the ILGT first season 1 event of their circuit, Olympia beating Eclipse in their finals. Then we've got ILGT, Scary Hours, and then Prodigy. Those are the top 5 for Davos. On to our next set. My man Tris, can you throw those up? My man Griz, walk us through your 5.
So my 5 may have changed a little bit, but I'll tell you what. So I have Olympia in first, and there's just no question about it at the moment. I mean, we talked about their dominance earlier with 9 first place wins, 5 second place finishes. It's just there's nobody that can really compete with that dominance year over year. So until someone knocks them off in multiple events, they're still at the top as far as I'm concerned. Eclipse has gone to 3 straight Xbox finals with Olympia, winning 1 of them, losing 2, but also losing to Olympia 5 total times. So they are still behind Olympia as far as I'm concerned. Scary Hours at number 3. The reason I have Scary Hours in front of Isles GT is because Scary Hours seems to be their kryptonite, and that's dating back to when they were Vertigo. And IGT has a losing record against Scary Hours. For whatever it is, they find a way to neutralize Isles GT. So until they can prove to me that they can get over that hump, that I will have Scary Hours over them. And then in 5th place, I have Composure, who I actually think I would slot in Prodigy at 5th instead of them. When I was doing this, it was right after Prodigy had lost in that best of 1 series in the IGT tournament. So I went with Composure, and then Composure got bounced in Caps round 1. So now I was kind of torn. But I do believe I would pick Prodigy now to go at 5th instead of Composure, based on the changes we talked about earlier.
No, absolutely. And again, I think the top 5 is, it's pretty interchangeable with like the among the top 5. I think you nailed it on the head about Olympia. Just there's no way to not have them at number 1. So we'll throw mine up. And again, I got Olympia. We've got Eclipse, ILGT number 3, Prodigy, and Scary Hours. And again, this is just me watching over the past few events kind of from the outside. Probably a little bit of a hot take on some of them. I always have ILGT now a little bit higher just because I've watched them so closely, and I know when they're on their game, it's extremely important or extremely, impressive, and they play so much different than a lot of other teams. Eclipse is, after getting to watch Eclipse versus Olympia in that finals, really impressive. Like they're a very good team, and I can't wait to see how they do in this event. And I hope we get to see Eclipse and Olympia gang. There was a lot of chirping going on. Did you see that stat that Rick sent me? All right, I got some heat on that.
That's true.
There was a little, yeah. Okay, so I tweeted out that because my man Rick, I don't mean to throw you on blast or expose DMs or anything like that, but he sent me this stat where they were 0-8 when I'm on the broadcast when Olympia plays Eclipse, 0-8 in games when I'm on the broadcast. And he actually explained in the background there was a time where I jumped in and covered their series when it was halfway through. So I think that might actually make up for it. And they're like 9-3 against them when I'm not on their broadcast, which is actually wild to me. Because I don't know, like, how does that happen? Rick just gets so nervous when I'm watching, I feel. Like that's just it. He just grips the stick a little bit harder. He's like, oh man, I don't want to disappoint Sleeves. Like, I don't know what it is. He's gonna roast me on Twitter or something like that. I don't know. It'll just it'll be it's something funny to watch. But and then Prodigy, again, kind of just a personal pick for me. I think that more of like I want to see them make top 5, right? There's a lot of teams that could go outside. I think Eclipse and Olympia probably. I mean, we have them 1-2 throughout. There's a lot of other interchangeable teams, but this is why it's so fun to watch this, play out and who is going to do as well as everyone predicts. Because usually there's a team that falls apart. And and then there's other teams that surprise. I mean, like Prodigy was last year. Like, I wonder who that team is going into this year. But all right, man, Tris, I think it's time for our giveaway, man. I think it's time. So let's go ahead and okay. As he's pointing out here, Red Light. I mean, the chat blew up for Red Light. I have seen Red Light, but I think their roster might have been far different, or they didn't do it nearly as well. Do you want to talk about them a little bit? Because
Red Light added Boily joining some of his friends, and that does make them a very, very good team. But they simply don't have the history for me to put them into my top 5. That doesn't mean they aren't a top 5 talented roster, but history does matter. Because until you've done it, you haven't done it.
I agree.
And Red Light has not done it yet. So how can they be top 5 when they're not a top 5 team? You know what I mean? So, but adding Boily has made this team extremely fun to watch, and they are going to be in every single game and series that they play. They will be a team to watch for sure.
No, absolutely. I agree. I'm very prove it first before I'm all in. You know what I mean? Like, I agree with you in that sense, but that'll be fun. And I'm not going to lie, there'll be a team now that like I kind of focus on and see how they do, because again, chat and the boys who play against them and scrim against them, they all seem to think that they are among the best, which is, that's saying a lot, especially in this landscape of, maybe not wanting to give credit to your opponents very much and very often. It's nice to see some other guys, on other teams kind of shout out some other squads. So let's go ahead and we'll do our giveaway for the first episode of Shark Bites. And guys, let us know whether it's through DMs or on Twitter or whatever. If you like this, if there's something else you want us to discuss week to week, this will be a weekly show where myself and Griz will be breaking down the week that was in the Shark Pacific Cup. We're trying to bring some more unique content as opposed to just more games being streamed. We want to kind of focus on and give you guys some highlighted spots of content to kind of make sure that you guys are getting your name out there. Again, we have to just point to what happened with Entourage and Isles GT. I've had a few people reach out and like, what should we be doing? What should we be focusing on? Being active in the community, being active on Twitter, staying clean, and in this kind of stuff, I think is a great way to kind of spotlight some of the teams that, you might not get to see week to week. So I'm really excited.
Giveaway, though, I do want to punch in here. Guys, start clipping your goals. If you guys score a nice goal, we want to see it and potentially show it here on this show every week. It doesn't matter where you are in the standings. If you score a nice goal, let us see it. Clip your goals. Send them anywhere to any of our DMs, anything like that. Let us see it so we can show everybody what you guys are made of. We want to see those clips.
Or Dang's not scoring. Also,
getting stuffed on a breakaway.
Also a great clip to see. Also a great clip to see. All right, Trish, you ready? Let's pull the name for the giveaway. Here we go. Yep. Post it in the chat, my man. I can't wait for here comes the rigged comments.
Always rigged. Do they have to be in chat right now to claim?
Yeah.
Okay. So you
got 30 seconds to type claim. Biscuit. Is that how you say? Is that you say his name? Busquet. All right, dude. Is he in here?
The winner says an NPC. You want to put the timer up? We'll give him 30 more seconds.
Hang on 1 second. He's in here.
He's got to type claim.
Claimed. You can't just go to bed, bro. You can't throw it up, hit exclamation mark giveaway, then dip, All right, we got 15 seconds. Rick is dying for a giveaway win.
The re-rolls in chat.
And, all right, roll it again. Pull another one.
Re-roll it. Type it in chat. Let's see it.
That was my favorite. You guys just assume that we know. Jax. X-Jax, bro. X-Jax. He's in here. It's
always the best part when you got to re-roll 4 times to get a winner.
Then it ends up being
nude. You got to stay till the end.
Then it ends
We're
up
gonna
being
be doing
Nuge.
these every podcast, every broadcast. WD Black is giving away something big, so you guys want to stay till the end.
That's a second tag. Oh my goodness. 15 seconds. No, dude, it's a second tag, he says. And all right, reroll it. If one of them claims it before the reroll person wins, I'll give it to them. Oh, claim. Yo, Jax claimed. Claim. Yeah. You want to whisper him on Twitch? DM Tris on LG. Yeah, make sure. Do you know how to do that? And if you don't, you're gonna get a lot of people trying, probably DM you trying to claim. So make sure that you make sure that it matches up. All right. So there we go.
Buzzer
All
beater.
right, dude. That was a fun first. Dude, that was a fun first episode, my man. It's it's always a blast to work with you. We get to go to somewhere a little bit warmer this weekend in Florida. You guys will see us for the Bold Shell Challenge Finals in Florida. We will be there calling that event, and then my man Griz will be back with week 1 of the Shark Pacific Cup, covering that, presented by WD Black. Guys, it was really fun, and I'm looking forward to do this every week to chat with you guys. And yeah, we'll get into it, my man. Any last words?
Nope, just take it easy, fella. Well, actually, yeah, one last word for you. How early do you have to get up to get to the airport on Friday?
It's early, brother. It's 5:30. Yeah, it's that's one part I don't miss about traveling, but I'm just excited to get out of here, man. I'm just excited to get out of here.
We'll be on the same flight, so.
Yes, sir. All right, boys. Thank you guys for watching. Again, let us know if you have any feedback for future Shark Bite episodes. It's been a blast, guys, and we will see you next week. Have a good one.
Take it easy.